wanting him to do a new 4-point on his house. He had a mortgage, and they said, you got to rewire that entire house. And oh, by the way, your insurance is going to go from $1,000 a year to $15,000 a year. And they forced the policy on him, and it just started coming out of escrow. So the question was asked to me, should you pay off your house? And as somebody that has done everything I'm about to tell you and done this in the real world, I got to talk about my story and my experience. And you can decide on whether this is something you might want to do or not. See, I've paid for the attorneys, I've paid for the financial advisors, and I've charted my own path on this whole debt-free journey, whether to be debt-free or not. So the things that I'm about to talk about are something that I can save you the time for searching for the information, and maybe you can just follow my journey too, or deviate. But I'm putting this out there for that one person that needs some advice, or maybe this is just another way of thinking about it, and it could help that one person. So let's get right to it. I tell you, there is a lot of noise out there on pay off your house, don't pay off your house, do this, invest the difference. There's a lot of noise created by banks that want to churn your money. They want to keep your money. They want you to keep paying your mortgage, or they just want you to invest with them, to a financial advisor, etc. I'm not here to hate on financial advisors. I'm here to just tell you my experience. There are really 6 things you got to know when you're talking about money. We're talking about paying off your mortgage. One, I want you to understand, and this is something that took me a long time to understand, is the difference between delta, risk, inflation, taxes, personal litigation and liability, and just securing yourself into retirement. Let me tell you something. Number one for me, if you are in any type of business that you can be sued, most states, at least in the state of Florida, we have the homestead exemption. We have the ability to homestead your property. And not a lawyer, but I'm going to tell you what they're going to say, is if you own your house and it's your homestead, usually husband-wife homestead or your homestead, you are going to be safe from creditors. Let's say you go to the hospital and you rack up an enormous medical bill. And here comes the judgment. They can take what's in the bank. They can take what's in your stock portfolio. They can take anything that's not in the floorboards of that house. And most of the time, you're going to be able to keep the house. I think it was a house 10 acres and up to 10 acres, whatever your homestead is, you know, that amount. And you're going to be safe from the creditor. If you ever go to sell it, there might be something attached to it. But while you own it, you have a place to sleep, you have a place to come home to, you have a place to start over from. And that is huge. The peace of mind of that is big, and that's something you don't hear any of these financial gurus talk about. Let's say you have a business or you're in some type of industry that you can be sued, high probability of being sued. You want a homestead and you want it paid for and you want that wealth in it. Let's say you have a mortgage now, 7%, whatever it may be. You have a known rate of return you paid down to solidify having a home, a place to sleep forever. Yeah, you got to pay your insurance and your taxes, but if you own it outright, you don't even have to have insurance. You make the rules. And that's one thing I want to talk about and really hammer home on this. I own my house outright. I've owned all my houses outright. And every time the insurance man came to me and said, we're going to up that premium, I told him to pound sand. Why? Because I don't have to have the insurance premium, or I don't have to pay the premium so I don't get foreclosed on by the bank. Or so the bank decides to force insurance on me. Let me tell you something about this. My friend wound up wanting to do a new 4-point on his house. And he had a mortgage. And they said, you got to rewire that entire house. And oh, by the way, your insurance is going to go from $1,000 a year to $15,000 a year. And they forced the policy on him, and it just started coming out of escrow. Luckily, he had savings, and he was able to hold on until he could rewire the house. He had to learn how to rewire the house and to learn how to go in there in the house with the electrician and help him get this thing done within the 30 days so he could just go ahead and you know, get a new premium. These are the things you got to worry about. My story is very simple. I got out of the military. I'd saved my money. I'd saved enough to buy a house, and that was my plan. Was I was going to do my time in the military. I was going to live off rice and beans, doing the Dave Ramsey way, because I didn't have anybody else to tell me about money, and I was going to do this journey on my own, and I was determined that I was going to be worth $1 million before 40. I was determined, but I had no idea how to get there. These type videos did not exist back then, and I had to read financial book after financial book. But I knew one thing: I could save my money, and that's what I did. I saved it, I saved it, I saved it. I got an apartment or a little rental with like 4 other Army officers, and we paid very little a month, and I just saved every dime. And when I got out, I had this idea. I was like, I'm going to figure out what I want to do, figure out where I'm going to live, and I'm going to buy real estate. And I'm just going to learn. I'm going to go out there, and I joined the Professional Investors Guild. I still go there to this day, like 10 years later. And I was there last night. And it set me on the track to understand finances, risk, real estate, and it all spills over into stock market investing. And so I knew I had to have a place to live, and my parents had a paid-for house, and I was like, well, that sounds like a good basis to start. I've talked about this on a numerous amount of my videos, and everything I'm telling you right now, I have done. You've seen me do on this YouTube channel, and it's all well documented. I've clawed my way to being a wealthy person. Clawed it through crawling underneath houses, doing things people didn't want to do, talking about it on the internet, and just saving my money and investing wise. Check out my video on 0 to 100,000 and you'll hear how I got to 100,000 and then kind of like my thoughts, because at every level of wealth, you will learn a different thing. You'll learn, how to save money. You'll learn how to bank. You'll learn how to use credit. You'll learn how to do all these things that every level you get better. And one thing, when I bought my first house, this house, I bought it with a bank to figure out how to do it. The Investors Guild always told us, do your first deal, go through it with the bank, learn what a WDO is, learn what a 4-point inspection is, learn what a survey is, and get an appraisal, and you'll know if you're doing it right, and voila, like you're learning the basics of home buying. And that's what I did. And I bought it, and it's crazy because back then I bought this house for $67,000. I think I had a $50,000 outstanding balance that I had at 4.75%. And I think my mortgage was $290 on this house, which is nuts to think about now. But I started buying other houses. And at that time, because it was a rental, Samantha had a house, and we sold her house to pay off her student loans, and then we moved in this house. We started renovating. Built out the equity in this house by renovating as we lived here. It got worth more, it became nicer, the economy started to pick up, but I had these houses over here, and I was like, you know what, I'm tired of spending all my time and effort fixing somebody else's house they're working in. I need to solidify my place. I need to have homestead exemption. I'll talk about that later in this video, how important that is. And I paid for this house in full. I paid it off. I got my little letter of, I'll never forget that day, I got my letter of it being paid off. And I even posted it on the internet. And then my world changed. And there's something that happens when you pay off your house. The peace of mind, the opportunity. People want to talk about opportunity cost lost by putting your money in a property. The reason why that is false, it's not that the money is in your house. It's how much money is in your house, right? If you buy $1 million house, okay, unless you're a really wealthy person, the insurance and property tax and mortgage and all that's involved in $1 million property does take away your opportunity. It's the amount of money you put into the property. I feel like big houses were built for banks. They're built for bank notes, unless you're really wealthy. And if you've got enough passive income coming in that you can sustain $1 million house over the course of your future, or $1.5 million or $2 million, that's awesome. You're in that elite group. But a lot of the people buying these, and they're like, oh, why would I put that amount of money? You shouldn't. You should buy a smaller house, pay it off. You got to live somewhere, and then take the rest of the money and put it into investments. Okay? Don't buy such big objects to sleep in. Your lifestyle creep has eroded away your usable cash, your liquidity. And that's what I figured out, was don't let my lifestyle go up as I start making money to erode away my liquidity. I paid this house off. I think I got $110,000 in it. And I took all the rest of my money, and every time this channel made money, I bought another house. And then I flipped that, or I rented it, and I did it again and again and again, and this business was growing. My real estate agent business was growing. But meanwhile, my homestead exemption was here, my taxes were low, I was safe from a creditor coming and taking my house. No matter how bad it got, I told Samantha, you can always come home right here and go to sleep and figure it out the next day. And everything on this little bitty grid square is ours. I don't have to worry about an insurance company coming and messing with me. I can have insurance or I can not. It's totally up to me. I am the land's lord. For all the guys out there that say, I'm going to keep my 3% mortgage and I'm going to have all these rental properties, well, it doesn't matter what your interest rate is if the insurance triples or quadruples and you have 10 of them. You can go bankrupt fast. And some of my buddies that were making fun of me about being debt-free and not doing debt, well, right now they're about to go bankrupt because in the state of Florida, the insurance has gotten astronomically high. And all those secondary homes, third homes, fourth homes, fifth homes, well, some of these insurance carriers, especially the ones that are using Airbnb and short-term rentals, they're saying, you know what? We're going to need you to pay a little more on the next premium. And since you got a mortgage, you got to do it. Have fun. Number two was the known rate of return. I wanted to hammer home, you're paying down a known rate of return. When you invest in the stock market, you are betting that it's going to go up based upon the history that the S&P 500 has had. Theoretically, 8 to 10%. But what it's not that you don't know is inflation. You don't know if the market's going to keep going up. You could invest in the next 5 years, it'd be down, or it can be flat, or it could keep going up if you believe in QE infinity, right? Well, that's something you got to figure out. And I personally go on the peace of mind formula. I would rather have the peace of mind of paid for real estate, knowing that I have a place to sleep, versus a stock portfolio that may just deflate. There is nothing worse, and I learned this through real estate, to have a portfolio of properties and you're out there crawling underneath the house, fixing something for somebody that doesn't even care and probably mad at you. And holding those properties, trying to get a return, but yet your house isn't paid for. And you're doing all this work on these houses over here for people that are, these tenants that just don't appreciate you. And yet your property isn't being taken care of. Your life and your peace of mind. See, I look at it as a moat. Everything around the four corners of this house, the outside world, well, this is my fortress of solitude. And I believe that you build a financial being, a financial playbook, portfolio from the ground up. It starts with the things you must have in life: food, water, shelter, a car, and then you work into investments, right? And that's what I did. When I bought this house, I didn't think it was going to be my home. I bought it as a rental. And the next 5 I bought as rentals. I did a mortgage on this one. And then I bought the other ones. And then I realized, hey man, like I need to stop doing these and take care of my own. And at that time, me and Samantha had moved in and started renovating. I promised her I would solidify this property before I bought another house. Because if I lost 30 or 40 grand on a house, which is very easily can happen with a bad flip or whatever, and I had 40,000 left off on this house, well, wouldn't I have rather paid off my house instead of just taking a haircut over there? It made sense to me, and that's what I started doing. I started heavily paying down this mortgage. I think I had a $50,000 mortgage on it, and I was like, I'm burning $300 a month just paying the bank. Or I could just pay this one down, and then every dollar henceforth I could take risk with. And that's when that's when I started becoming truly wealthy. Or when you become elder, when you go to retire, you cannot, I don't care what any of these cats say, most people cannot retire with a mortgage still left. You're going to be on a fixed income. You're going to be going into a time where there's a lot of medical bills. Let's say you have cancer, you beat it, and now you think it may come back. And you're going to be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. And you're relying on an insurance company. Hopefully you have insurance into your later years. You're hoping they're going to pay for it. Well, what if they don't? This is a quick way to become homeless in your older age. You have a mortgage. You have a very little amount of income coming in. You have some savings. Medical company comes in and just wreaks havoc on you with a judgment, liens, whatever, runs your credit. And now what? You've got a mortgage you probably can't pay for now, and let's say your insurance goes up, and you're stuck. You're looking at the end of the road. If you had a paid-for house, they can't do anything. They can't remove you from the property in a homestead state, okay? You got to really think about elder care. It's expensive. It requires planning for it. That's something politicians don't want to talk about. I just went through it with my father, and I learned so much. Maybe I'll start talking about that here on this channel because so many people need to know. You've got to have a house paid for. You've got to have a place to live, and you don't want uncertainty in that time in your life. You want to be grounded, and you're able to go out in your golden years and experience it and enjoy it. See, everybody wants to talk about the opportunity cost lost. Well, you know what? It's really bad when you're homeless. You don't have a place to sleep. You don't have your fortress of solitude to give you the peace of mind enough to go and be aggressive in the market, okay? Opportunity cost is like this mythical thing. They're like, oh, well, I could get 10% doing rental properties until you have a vacancy rate and a tenant sue you and a tree fall on a roof and all these things that can happen. You're going to be like, well, I'm not getting 10%. That's the risk delta. You have to understand the risk going forward. And I think this was hammered home to me in real estate. See, real estate guys, because I'm a real estate agent and I'm a real estate investor, I see people go through this, and real estate people have a high threshold of risk. I have done some risky stuff. I've bought houses without surveys. I've crawled underneath crazy houses. I've bought houses sight unseen. And you have to learn to tolerate risk. But what these financial advisors don't understand is you can't look at real estate and some things in life on a spreadsheet. You have that human element, that Murphy's Law that just pops up. And most of the time, the risk delta is the one that'll get you. And I mean, they could just change capital gains rates on your portfolio. They could do a number of things that all of a sudden you're stuck. What we're looking at right now, the administration might take capital gains for certain people to 44%. You're seeing it in Canada, I think it's 60-something%. You don't know what is in the future for taxes. You don't know what's in the future for inflation. You don't know what's in the future for many things. You could lose your job. Like, a recession means millions of jobs lost, and that could be your job. And you've got to know whether I can pay my mortgage, because 100% of people that get foreclosed on have a mortgage. But if you're a young guy and you're saying, Jack, this doesn't make any sense mathematically, it says this, and on my Excel spreadsheet it says that. Look, here's how you get wealthy. Get wealthy by upping your income, okay? You don't let your lifestyle creep chase your income. You make as much money as you can by keeping your bills really low. You save as much money as you can, and you learn real estate and the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is probably going to be the high water line of inflation and everything in the economy. It is the U.S. economy, and you're buying the U.S. economy. Real estate is where you can generate wealth, okay? There's, a lot of ways to make money. You can buy it, sell it, flip it, wholesale it. You can finance it. You can do all kinds of stuff with real estate. You can add equity. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can depreciate it. You can help with your taxes. You can buy portfolios. A lot of things you can do. That's how you get wealthy. But trying to get wealthy on the deviation between 4% and 6% and 2% and paying off your mortgage, dude, pay your mortgage off, man. Go to the next item, because this one isn't it. This one is about reducing risk in your life. It's about having a place to sleep while growing Well, if you live there 2 of the next 5 years, you can take the gain tax-free, go to the next property, okay? And you're not getting eat up by all the daggum interest, okay? And don't talk to me about the interest deduction. That is a myth, and you're splitting hairs. Look, the rich, the wealthy, are not going to sit there on your they're not going to buy a house for $200,000 and argue with the banker on whether they're going to let him close or not. He's going to show up with a cashier's check or a wire. He's going to grab the house like he's mad at it, and he's going to go on about his way. And then when he's done with the house, he's going to list it, and he's going to sell it, and he's going to go on to the next one, and he's going to go on to the next deal, and the next deal, and the next deal, and the next deal. He's not going to argue about the 0.2%, okay? That's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to show up with my checkbook, cashier's check, whatever the title company wants me to do, wire, whatever. I'm going to pay for the house, I'm going to fix it, and then I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to rent it, or I'm going to do whatever. And if I feel froggy, I can refinance it. I'm just not going to sit there and argue with somebody about, Jack, you should have unpaid for real estate, when I know that paid for real estate portfolios spew cash like volcanoes. Like my buddy said the other day after his 35th rental property, was like, dude, paid for real estate's where it's at. I keep having so many vacancy rates, and I keep having to kick all these people out, and I keep having to fix all these things, and the insurance is killing me, and the notes that everything from hard money to regular mortgages are so problematic to keep up with, and tending to the debt. Every month you got to tend to the debt. You got to make sure they're all paid. You got to make sure all the insurances are good. The financing, the bookkeeping, the tax guy, the depreciation schedules, the mortgage schedules. It's a lot to keep up with, okay? Paid for real estate is the way to go because you're the boss. So in conclusion, I hope this made sense. The idea is peace of mind, paid for real estate. And you can enjoy life. As Dave Ramsey would say, what restaurants can you eat in with a paid for house? Any of them you want. And that is absolutely true, because I've realized that I can go and eat any steak I want, and I don't have to worry about the mortgage getting paid, okay? And if the lights get turned off, well, I still have the house. I don't have to worry about the creditor coming and getting me. I don't have to worry about the lender coming and getting me. I don't care what the insurance guy has to say. And my wealth exploded after I paid off the house, because all the money coming in wound up being able to be put into investments or risked at a higher level, or being able to go into deals I probably wouldn't have done before. And if I lose the money, well, shucks, it was part of the game. But my risk factor could go up. I didn't have to worry about making the mortgage payment. And I hope that makes sense. Comment down below what you think. Do you have a paid for real estate, paid for house, or not? And if you're in the game of leverage, cool. Leverage is like a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, or it can cut you in half. And if you understand that, go for it. But that's it. I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I felt like this just needed to be said.